Signs of improvement, encouraging words resounding through the extended Buffalo Bills family tonight as Damar Hamlin continues to fight for his life. The beloved Buffalo Bills star remains in critical condition 2 nights after that terrifying collapse on the field in Cincinnati. Good evening, I'm Matt Malloy. Tonight we are learning new information about the league, from the league I should say, on medical protocols, as well as new words of caring and support for number 3. We begin with 13 Wham's Jenna Cottrell and those promising signs from doctors today. Jenna.
For Damar Hamlin, as tonight his family is saying the 24-year-old's oxygen levels have improved. Now, Damar is still in critical condition, but his family remains optimistic as his recovery looks to be moving in a positive direction. At this point, it's just unclear, though, how long this medical journey will be. But this afternoon, the NFL holding a Zoom call about the terror, really, of Monday night after Hamlin collapsed on the field and then went into cardiac arrest. Today, league executive vice president of football operations and former player Troy Vincent breaking down into tears as he thanked the emergency staff on Monday night at the game and what they were able to do for Damar.
There's no playbook for managing like real-time drama and emotions. There was only one policy and practice that mattered that evening, and that was the emergency action plan by those first responders. That emergency action plan was executed to perfection. The physicians, the trainers, the EMTs. You gave our brother Damar another day to live.
Yeah, it keeps it all in perspective. A very scary situation, but again, tonight, some early positive signs of progress for Hamlin. Now, in terms of the football side of things, Buffalo did have practice today as they're scheduled to play on Sunday. Coming up in sports, what the NFL is saying tonight about the decision to possibly resume that Bills-Bengals game. We'll have that in sports.
Jenna, thank you. While the exact cause of Hamlin's cardiac arrest has not been disclosed, the NFL's chief medical officer says extensive screening is done on all players. Dr. Alan Sills says an EKG is done every season. He also points out that in many cases, players don't necessarily have a pre-existing history or pre-existing abnormality, and cardiac arrest can occur without any warning. He also says the league conducts reviews after any medical event.
Anytime we have an evacuation off the field, whether it's for a broken bone or a spine injury, a concussion, we always do an after-action review, just like we do in the hospital, to see, is there anything we can learn? Is there anything we can do better? Is there anything that will help other players going forward?
Dr. Sill says the main focus right now is treating Hamlin and helping him get better. He says the league will do everything they can to help his doctors find answers. We have breaking news on Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin, who remains in critical condition at this hour. Tonight, his uncle says his nephew had to be resuscitated twice after suffering cardiac arrest on the field last night.
I never crashed so hard in my life, man. Just to know, like my nephew basically died on the field and they brought him back to life. I mean, that's just heartbreaking.
And tonight, prayers continue to pour in for the 24-year-old football player. Fans gathering for a vigil outside the hospital in Cincinnati tonight. Others joining hands at Highmark Stadium earlier today. The extended Buffalo Bills family believing in the power of prayer and healing for number 3. We do have team coverage on this breaking new information from the family of Damar Hamlin. Good evening to you. I'm Matt Malloy. Hamlin's uncle says he is not breathing on his own. We begin with our Mike Catalana outside the hospital in Cincinnati right now. Mike, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Matt. It was 24 hours ago that Damar Hamlin was brought right here to the University of Cincinnati Medical Center right behind me. At the time he was brought in, he was in critical condition. He is in the intensive care unit, and he remains in critical care right now, in critical condition behind me. Now, support for the Bills player has been going on throughout the last day plus here, including this evening where there was a vigil held, and the vigil was held at 8:55 tonight. That is the exact time of the injury suffered by Damar Hamlin on the field here in Cincinnati in the game the Bills were playing against the Bengals. That went on just a few feet from where we are standing now. People lining up to pray and to think about Damar Hamlin. Now, also out here earlier today was Hamlin's uncle, who is with the family. His uncle, Dorian Glenn, came out to speak to reporters. He said Damar had to be resuscitated twice. Then he described he and his family getting here from their hometown of Pittsburgh when they saw what happened in the game to Damar.
We're in Pittsburgh watching it on TV, and his little brother was there with us. And when he seen his brother drop like that, and when I tell you I never seen him crash, scream like that, like we were trying to calm him down, like, yo, it's okay, you know, he'll gonna get back up, he'll be back in the game, you know, woo. Next thing you know, it's 10 minutes later, they're doing chest compressions. It's a half hour later, they still not playing yet. I'm like, yo, what's going on? What's wrong with my nephew? I've never crashed so hard in my life, man. Just to know, like my nephew basically died on the field and they brought him back to life. I mean, that's just heartbreaking. And to see all those grown men crying and all the emotion, man, it really was a gut punch, man. And I would have been crying no matter who it was, but for it to be my nephew, it had that much more impact on me, man.
Yeah, he also confirmed that, as we had believed, he is still on a ventilator, and he did praise the care that Damar Hamlin has gotten at the medical center behind me right now. Now, as far as the Buffalo Bills players are concerned, they have been back in Buffalo. We had not been able to hear from any of the Bills players. That changed tonight when one of them spoke publicly. For that, we head back to the studio and Jenna Cottrell. Jenna?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. We're hearing for the first time from a fellow Bills player as veteran Dion Dawkins talking tonight, and you could hear the emotion in his voice, just a gut-wrenching situation. Now, the team did see the prayer circle today outside the stadium earlier this afternoon, as today the Bills did hold meetings at One Bills Drive at Orchard Park, but they had nothing to do, as you can imagine, with football, as the players and coaches just trying to process what they saw and how their teammate, or as they call it, their brother, is doing. Now, the Bills are scheduled to play on Sunday against the Patriots at home, but that's the schedule. And Dion Dawkins really just opening up about what the last 24 hours have been like.
We are all devastated. Like when things like this happen, it's a shock to all of us. You know, it's a dramatically unique thing that has happened, and we're all going through it together. It was just in that moment where you kind of like just have to be vulnerable and just let prayer just go up and work its magic.
Yeah, and the other players that I've talked to, you can imagine the concern that they have, the level of anguish, everyone just hoping for a positive outcome tonight as a team really focusing on, like you heard Dion Dawkins say, the power of prayer. We know the Bills community, it seems like the entire world praying for a positive outcome as we continue to wait for updates tonight.
Everyone has been following this story, including young football fans who were watching the game live. Parents have been working on talking to their children about what they saw. This morning, we've asked Dr. Elizabeth Murray, the spokesperson for the American Academy of Pediatrics, to join us to talk more about how to address this topic with their children. Good morning, Doc. Thanks so much for waking up with us.
Good morning.
So this is, it was really dramatic what we saw on television the other day. We saw something that you don't normally see on live TV, and that's a football player, someone who is in peak physical health, collapse on the field, and then you see the teams surround him, perform CPR. It was really just shocking and stunning for viewers at home.
Most certainly. Was watching the game. He is a critical care physician himself, and his immediate response was, whoa, what just happened here? You know, so we can hold this young athlete and his family in our hearts, but that's not mutually exclusive from holding ourselves and checking in with ourselves to make sure that our loved ones and we are okay with what we experienced. And this is kind of a shared trauma. The CPR that we see on the medical shows on TV is not actually that realistic. And so the people on the field, the people right there, all of us watching at home, all have together gone through a very dramatic experience, especially for families who themselves perhaps have lost loved ones, perhaps have seen CPR being performed on their loved ones in the past. And so this is a unique experience for everybody. But again, we can worry about and care for this young athlete and his family, but we can also check in with our own families and ourselves to make sure we're doing okay and processing this as well.
Now, Doc, how do you address this topic with your children? You got kids at home. They're watching the game with you before bedtime on Monday. How do you broach this with them?
Yeah, first thing is just kind of check in to see where they are. You know, if a child watched this, that's going to be different than if they've heard about it from friends. And certainly ages and stages play a role here. You know, the very young children are going to process this differently than teenagers. And so you simply starting with, you know, what do you know about what happened and what are your thoughts about it? What questions do you have? You know, kids will surprise us. Their ability to process things sometimes is incredibly profound, and their perspective can also be really amazing and wonderful as well. And so hearing from your child as far as knowing where they are can help you start to help them to figure out what they need to help process the situation. You know, we have very little information right now, and that's okay. This isn't our story to tell. This is his story to tell if and when they are ready to do so. And so not having all of the answers can create so many more questions, especially for our young athletes out there. The data tells us that for decades, sudden cardiac arrest has been a very common cause of death in the athlete population. And so you could understand that seeing this on TV, seeing this, hearing about it in the news could make young athletes and people and parents too concerned as far as, could this happen to me? Could this happen? And so I think making sure the kids understand that helpers were there, people were there and they responded. The team of medical professionals were there in seconds, and everybody did their job accordingly, and hopefully we will hear some wonderful news and good outcomes in this case.
Certainly hoping for that very soon. You do say one other thing, and it's kind of along the lines of one of my favorite quotes from Mr. Rogers. I'll butcher it now, but he said something like, in trying times, look for the helpers. And that's kind of along the lines of what you say about this too, no?
Most definitely, most definitely. I mean, reinforcing the fact that everybody was there to help. They had professionals there ready to help. The same is true in our communities. You know, we have wonderful supports of first responders in our communities. This is a time where we can take action steps. You know, when we are taking an action, it helps us feel in control. So making sure our family members, teenagers, middle schoolers, they can learn CPR. They can learn how to use an AED. You know, the AED devices are phenomenal. And really, if you've never used one, it will tell you what to do, but certainly having that familiarity with it before you need to use it is just so important. Knowing where the AEDs are in your school, if you're in a public place, if you're at the War Memorial, if you're wherever you may be, having some awareness of where those devices are, where are the first aid stations, where are the people that can help you if you need to render care or help to get care for somebody else.
And Doc, you may not have the answer to this, and it's really off the cuff, but you might know this. Are there enough people that know CPR, or is there worry that, you know, this is not good? More people need to be active in this, understand it, know how it's done properly to save lives.
We know that high-quality CPR and early access to a defibrillator dramatically improves rates of survival. As I mentioned, sudden cardiac death in the athlete population has for decades been a major cause of death. However, the statistics are telling us that those numbers are improving because of early access to high-quality CPR.
Doc, I gotta let you go. Thank you so much. We'll post all this on our website, foxrochester.com. We're back after this.